I was telling a friend that the real curse of cancer, if you make it through the first time, is the question or the fear that it will come back again. Cancer is a stalker who hides behind every test, every yearly physical, every medical hiccup, every form you fill out for the rest of your natural life. What does natural life mean anyway? Natural as opposed to unnatural life? And since my diagnosis 10 years ago, I can think of several times where I felt terror as a result of one test or another. It's not a normal fear. It's more gut-wrenching than that. It's like your insides are being eaten. You're alive. You're watching. You can feel everything as they eat through your stomach and they get out into your entrails. It's that kind of gut-wrenching, folks. Like The Walking Dead. Remember that moment when Glenn was under the car? Yeah? That moment when he was under the car? It's like that. And there you are, with your guts hanging out, staring at the sky, searching for the internal answer to the bigger why. Why, God? Why? The plaintive why, God, why yelled up at the unforeseen towards the unknown. Even if you don't believe in a God, you may find yourself begging like this, bargaining with the universe. The gods, the ghosts of your ancestors, the guides, an entity, whomever will listen to you as you beg fervently for a positive outcome from some God. Any God will do, really. This is the real haunting. The fear creeping about as it does, shifting the edges of your natural life. This fear that feels like your guts are suddenly being skewered in food for zombies. The first time it happened, they found those moon-like slivers again in a mammogram. I remember, I just went into this uncontrollable crying fit. A crying jag, really? It's just they asked me to come back in so I could take more scans and an ultrasound until it culminated into a biopsy right there on the table on Friday at 5 p.m. And I was crying my head off. And my sister, Laura Kim, she was holding my hand. And I just couldn't stop crying. And I was wondering what she was thinking at this extreme display. And it was extreme, like a super snot-riddled, red-faced, visceral crying accompanied by the kind of breathing where you just can't catch your breath. It was unplanned and immediate, like a baby screaming for her mother. I wailed for my survival in that small room, lying on the flat, hard table with my heart exposed and my chest laid cold and bare. The technician doing the ultrasound was appropriately concerned, kind, and distant, a recognizable symptom of cancer hospital care. Everyone is so nice, and yet I feel that separation that disease creates. The distance of my condition, which is tiptoed around with these small smiles and the subtle nods of the head, a secret understanding that my situation sucks. The technician said I was lucky, as the doctor was still there at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and they could perform a needle biopsy. Lucky, huh? But then this question of lucky, it is something you hold on to as you measure yourself against others. I'm lucky. I have the old lady cancer. I'm lucky I don't have those BRCA genes. I'm lucky I had the mammogram at 38, or they would never have caught it. But really, who is lucky with a cancer that comes back to haunt you every scan, every test for the rest of your life? There you are again with the lucky. I'm lucky at least I have a life. Comparing the suffering gets tricky when you've had cancer. When I would see my oncologist, I would think, well, those old ladies, they're old. They don't have that many years left to be haunted like this. And really, these are terrible thoughts when they happen. But then I'll have a friend who will be on in stage 4 when I was only on stage 2. Now, I didn't have the chemo, even though I almost had the chemo. But then I had to have 3 surgeries, and maybe they only had 2 or 1. It's the suffering game show, folks. Who has had it worse? Or at what point or period of my life was I suffering more than I am now? This one sometimes stumps me. For example, in my teenage years, I do recall feeling miserable, but almost as if the misery were entirely of my own making, and I just didn't penetrate as deeply because I didn't know myself as well. But now I have the resources to sink and sink deeply into a vast well of sadness. Growth equals expansion, equals deeper feelings, equals more despair. But then, shouldn't the equal and opposite be true? More expansion should also mean more joy. And then also, the more despair I have, the more compassion, right? The latest cancer haunting happened just 2 weeks ago when I went to the ER with a swollen right calf. Now, there was something I convinced myself was nothing. I am forever the escapist. I am convincing myself and others that everything is nothing, and at some point I'll turn in on myself in such denial, like the white blood cells that we've been hearing about that just go into overdrive and kill the thing that they're trying to heal. I'll manage to burn myself up in denials and be swept away by my own words. Well, maybe I entered it when walking to the gym, or on my lunch hour, or at the gym working out with my trainer. I didn't realize it till now. Yeah, that must be it. I was sure the swelling would go down eventually. Just put my foot up. Mayhaps the swelling would disappear overnight while sleeping. I mean, what could it be? What could it be? A simple leg pull. But the swelling didn't go away. It stayed with me all weekend. Me and my heavy waterlogged leg relentlessly dragging around my log of a leg. Gimpy and me and Gimpy. So eventually I relented and I looked it up online. And after researching, it was unfortunate news, as the internet always brings. Quite possibly, I had this thing called deep vein thrombosis that can be particularly deadly if it breaks off and goes into your lung. I like to say it like this: deep vein thrombosis. To be continued.